You are listening to what may be the finest hour in radio on this station at this hour. I know I see you laughing, but that's a safe claim, isn't it? This is the best show on this channel at this time, right?
That's safe.
Yeah,
Very
because
safe.
This is disclosure. My name is Shawn Boonstra. I work for a very, very old radio organization known as the Voice of Prophecy, and so does the lovely Miss Jean, who's sitting across the table from me, my bride of 25 and a half long years.
Careful.
Yeah, and but happily married. We did our, what is that? That's your silver, right? Your silver
25
anniversary?
is silver.
Yeah, you have your silver anniversary right about the time that your hair starts going silver.
Pretty close.
Yeah, and then when you hit 50 years of marriage, it goes gold, your hair.
Goes white. True.
It goes white. I don't have a lot.
No, you have almost no gray hair. It's not very
It's
fair.
funny. I posted a picture on social media to someone who hadn't seen me in 30-some years, basically since high school, and she was not pleased. She says, "That's not fair. You don't have any gray hair." But I do. Look.
Oh, brother.
Right there.
Yeah, there are about 4 of them.
Right there in the very sort of in the skunk patch on my beard.
I know. You have all your hair.
Yes, I do.
And you have almost no gray.
Yep.
I know. And you're almost 50.
Yeah. Well, I'm a time traveler.
You must be.
Yeah.
It's not right.
No, but I look old around the eyes. I've noticed that now. When I look in the mirror, I'm thinking, how did I turn into an old dude?
No, you don't look old yet.
Oh, yeah, I do.
No.
Ask our kids.
Well,
I'm
I
a
don't know what they're
dinosaur as
talking
far as
about.
their. I'm a dinosaur as far as their. Speaking of dinosaurs, look at that clever segue.
Ooh.
Look at that clever segue. That's why I make the big bucks in radio, folks.
Cool.
Yeah, big bucks. No, I make some bucks.
Some bucks.
Some bucks. Yeah. Here's a guy. His story came out this year. It's 2019 as I'm saying this. If it's rerun season, it might be 2020 or 21 or 22. Who knows? How long do we rerun these things? I think we keep a show for about 20 years, right? Yeah, about 20 years. And then, but this was from 2019. And so here's a fossil hunter who I guess got in trouble because he's selling a T-Rex skeleton on eBay for $3 million, 2.95. This is from the New York Times. And look at this. It says right here, you have 4 free articles remaining. So this is before it slips behind a paywall. I managed to get this one out of the New York Times for free.
Okay.
Hey, New York Times, little known secret. You can read 4 free articles, or 5, on your Chrome browser, and then you can switch to your Safari browser, and you can get another 5 free articles, and then the same on Firefox.
Oh.
And that's dishonest, folks.
Yeah.
No, it's a possibility. They need to fix that. A fossil hunter's attempt to sell a young Tyrannosaurus Rex skeleton on eBay for $2.95 million set off a furor among scientists who warned that it needs to be studied, not sold to the highest bidder. The skeleton's owner, Alan Dietrich, defended his decision to try and sell the 15-foot fossil to a wealthy private collector, arguing that it could still be subject to research. It's very hard to reach a billionaire, he said. Putting it on eBay is one way to do it. So the billionaires can buy this statue. So I'm not sure how he found it. You know, the only baby T-Rex in the world. Rare opportunity, says the ad.
Yeah.
This may be the only baby T-Rex in the world. Rare opportunity indeed to ever see a baby Rex.
Well, the skeletons are rarely found complete. That's true. They're usually fragmented.
Yeah.
So it would be valuable.
Hey, this guy lives here somewhere. He lives in Kansas, and he found this thing in Montana.
Interesting.
Yeah. And in 1990, this is not the first time he's done it. In 1999, he tried to sell a T-Rex skeleton on eBay for $5.8 million. And I guess it got shut down because a bunch of pranksters started to flood the auction with fake bids, it says.
Oh,
so,
interesting.
I don't know. If I found a skeleton, I would offer it to the scientist to purchase. That is my T-Rex.
I suppose.
That is my baby T-Rex.
You're fine.
I would want to set it up in the living room.
I'm sure you would.
Yep, the T-Rex. So,
Cool.
Hey, but our subject isn't dinosaurs, even though I am one. At least our children are convinced that I'm a bit of a dinosaur. It's like, Dad, that's the way it was in your day. The first time I heard that one, your generation. What do you mean my generation? I'm still, like, my childhood wasn't that far back. I graduated school sometime in the 1980s. And that's not that far back.
Well,
come on, man, I'm still young. But I guess, you know what? No, I guess to the 80s, our oldest was born in 99. So the 80s to her is what the 50s were to me.
which makes it seem old.
Right, because
When you
I was
think of it
born
that way.
I was born in the late 60s and the 50s. World War II was about the same distance back as the 80s are to my kids, I guess.
Yeah.
No, that's not true.
No,
I'm born in the
that-
60s. That's 20 years back.
20 years back. So even the World War II was closer.
Have you ever done this exercise where you take your age, go back to the year you were born, and then go back your age one more time? So seeing where your halfway point is. And my halfway point is that I was born halfway between the end of World War I and now.
Oh, my.
Yeah. Isn't that weird?
You are a dinosaur.
No, that's right. I was born halfway, roughly, just
Weird.
a little on one side or the other. I won't tell you which side it is,
Okay.
but I am at the half-century mark. You go back a half-century, and you end up 50 years out, basically, from the end of World War I, just a little bit more. Yeah. So what about you? You'd be the Great Recession, I guess.
Oh, I don't want to do that exercise.
The Great Depression.
The Great Depression.
No, I had someone try that one time, and they found out they were the Boer War. It's like,
Wow. That's worse.
well, let me think.
Another century.
My dad this coming year will be 80. And so you go back 80 years from 2020, 1940, and then you go back another 80 years and you're in 1860. So he's basically, my
Civil
father was
War.
born halfway between the Civil War and now,
Oh, no.
right?
Whoa.
I know. All right, let's talk about that. Let's talk about how you become a dinosaur. The fastest route to becoming a human dinosaur is to raise children.
Definitely true.
Yeah. So this is a part 2. We didn't expect to do a part 2, but we started talking about parenting. Remember, I titled it and made sure we get the punctuation correct. Parenting, the agony and the ecstasy,
There you go.
period.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah. Dun, dun, dun. And I feel like we barely, and maybe this doesn't interest anybody out there. Maybe we are boring the world to death. But I think if you've raised kids, looking back on it is an interesting exercise. Did I accomplish what I wanted to accomplish? Did I learn what God wanted me to learn? Who raised who? Did the kids raise me or did I raise them? All very interesting questions. In parenthood, I don't know, I look at it and God uses marriage to describe his relationship to us, right? In Ephesians 5, Paul says, I'm not really talking about husband and wife, I'm talking about Christ and the church. And so marriage is a school for heaven. It's school for a relationship with God. It teaches you things, and that'd be a good show. What have you learned
That
from
would be
marriage?
good.
I've learned very little from marriage. other than
You've learned a lot
it's
more
not
than you
okay
think.
to just be a man. It's okay.
It's okay to be
it's
a man.
Yeah, no, I know, but it's not just okay to be a man and assume everybody works on man terms.
That's true.
Right. So
That's
I've learned to be incredibly sensitive over the years. I'm a very sensitive male.
Okay.
You started
I won't
laughing before
argue
I
with
was
you on
finished
the
with that. No, I'm not terribly sensitive. But the other one is family. God is a father. There are places where God is even described in motherly terms. Can a nursing mother, one passage, can a nursing mother forget her child? Same way I can't forget you. You are engraved in the palms of my hands, God says. And so parenting, I think, is another avenue through which it makes you wonder, did God set up families? Did he set up everything in the Garden of Eden on purpose because it was going to be a school about him? And I'm convinced it's true. I think nature was a school about God. And it still is to this day, in spite of the fact that we have marred nature with what human beings have done in the rebellion against God. The fingerprints of God are still there. Family, marriage, children. I think it's all a school for heaven. And God put us in a situation where on our level, in our little bubble of influence, we can learn things about him that you can't learn maybe somewhere else.
True.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
So let's pick up, because one of the things we talked about last time was, what did parenting actually teach you personally about God? And it's okay if we recap a few things we said, because who knows how many weeks ago you heard episode 1 of the agony and the ecstasy. Yeah, it's catchy. I might have stolen that title from somewhere. Maybe.
Just maybe.
Yeah. But what did parenting teach you about God? How did it change your... And again, the context for this is that we are just about 20 years into parenting, just about 20 years at this point, and our kids are basically grown, and one is gone essentially, and the other one's just about gone. Looking back, what do you think parenting taught you about God, who he is? How did it alter your relationship with him?
Well, it's the difficult points of parenting really that stretch you. I have found it's during the difficult times where you don't quite know what to do and things don't turn out as you expect them to. And first, what that did for me was kind of reinforced where my priorities were in my life and forced me to turn to God more and to rely on Him more, which built my faith. It built my relationship with God. And then in addition to that, I've found being a parent, because my greatest desire really is to make sure that our daughters grow up as women of faith. Funny, slight segue. I remember when Natalie was little, particularly with Natalie, because both
I'm just taking a sip of water while you're talking. I'm listening.
I know you are. Both our children are stubborn for some reason. It might be because both
because
parents are
of their
stubborn.
mother. Because of their mother.
But I would say Natalie's more stubborn. And
Really?
So,
Really?
You don't think so?
I don't know.
Maybe she's just more vocal about her stubbornness. Okay. Anyway, when she was young, she was extremely stubborn. So,
yeah, that's true.
Oftentimes she would push me and push me and push me. And I would just say to her, Natalie, you may not like this, but it's my job as your mother to make sure that you grow up to be a nice Christian lady. And I said that to her over and over and over and over again. But that's my ultimate goal, is that both our daughters, Naomi and Natalie, grow up to be women of God.
So what happened? Because they're both basically sitting on death row right now. I don't know where you went wrong. No, they're not on death row. No, they're not on death row.
They're good. Both of them love God genuinely.
Yeah, they really do.
Which is so wonderful. So go ahead.
No, I was just thinking, yeah, they do. They both love the Lord. And I'm actually watching that in amazement. Like, how did that happen? Because
I know.
They both love the Lord. They both work for God, and they spend their summers doing evangelism and witnessing.
And they both, neither of them is studying theology,
no.
But they both want to do ministry work in different capacities,
Weird.
which is so amazing.
Weird. They grew up around it, and they don't dislike it.
They don't. They don't resent it, and they don't dislike it. In fact, they share a passion, which in my wildest dreams, I never dreamed both of them would end up with that same passion. But anyway, but really,
nice Christian ladies.
Yeah, wanting that for them created in me a greater desire for me to have a strong faith. And so it gave me an honest, heartfelt desire to spend time with God, to spend time in my Bible every day, to spend time with Him. And that came out of not the fun, easy, light parts of parenting. That came out of the tough parts.
Yeah.
And so it just stretched me.
Well, I actually give you more credit than me for the fact that our kids grew up loving the Lord. You read them stories from the Bible. They knew the Bible early and stuff.
So did you.
No, they had this.
Did too.
They have a dad who's just a smidge out of control most days, and yet.
No.
Yeah, but I am thankful. It taught me a lot. We're going to have to take a break because you chatted up the entire first segment of the show. You filled it with your opinions.
Yeah, I did this time. Usually you say that as a joke.
Yeah, do you remember the couple, we won't name them, years ago? The wife turns to the husband in front of everybody. Nobody wants to hear your opinions.
Your strong opinions.
Your strong opinions, yeah, I know.
Yeah, that marriage didn't last.
No, it did not last.
No.
I do like your opinions.
Thank you.
Most of the time, unless you're opining on me.
Okay.
Because you're always wrong.
When you're
telling me I'm stubborn and what have you, your opinion's wrong. It's just dead wrong. All right.
Stubborn.
No. Hey, we're about to take a break, and we're going to fix our marriage during this break while you write down this important information from the Voice of Prophecy. And we'll be right back with Parenting Part 2, the agony and the ecstasy.
Are you searching for answers to life's toughest questions like, where is God when we suffer? Can I find real happiness? Or is there any hope for our chaotic world? The Discover Bible Guides will help you find the answers you're looking for. Visit us at BibleStudies.com or give us a call at 888-456-7933 for your free Discover Bible Guides. Study online on our secure website or have the free guides mailed right to your home. There is never a cost or obligation. The Discover Bible Guides are our free gift to you. Find answers in guides like, Does my life really matter to God? And A Second Chance at Life. You'll find answers to the things that matter most to you in each of the 26 Discover Bible Guides. Visit BibleStudies.com and begin your journey today to discover answers to life's deepest questions.
Got somebody waving at me in the control booth. That means we are out of the break. I have repaired our marriage, and I have taken some correction from my wife. It's true. Some kids do end up on death row. I was, kind of being lighthearted about it, but
Right.
that doesn't necessarily mean you were a bad parent because, well, there's something you can learn about God. God is the perfect parent, and his kids rebelled anyway. And so sometimes in spite of your best efforts, there's still free will. And David did some things that affected his family life, King David, but still he had Absalom turn against him. Was that his fault? Is it? I think, and I weigh that. How much of what my kids do wrong is my fault, and what part is their free will? And I wonder, does God go through that? Why, we do see these statements where God says, why did I make man in the first place? And I wonder, I don't want to presume that God self-doubts. This is not a theological statement and stuff, but I'm trying to imagine the agony going through his heart when he's watching a human race that has become so wicked that he repents, in the language of Genesis, he repents of having made them. And so I don't go through that because I can't adopt God's perspective, but I'm watching thinking, okay, when my kid does that, is that my fault? Is that their fault? I don't know. And so you could be a perfectly good Christian parent and your kid still ends up on death row. I don't mean to make light of that.
Absolutely.
There are parents out there that are suffering because their kids have made tragic mistakes in life, and it doesn't, sometimes it does stem to parenting and sometimes it does not.
Right.
Right. And so free will is a big issue.
And we all know people who are successful and are men and women of faith who grew up in terrible situations in their childhood. So it really does come down to personal responsibility.
However, I do think, and I always want to, I'm not trying to condemn anybody or anything like that, but there is a responsibility that we have, and God does hold us accountable, I think, if we abdicate our duty as parents. And so you can be faithful to your duty and still get a bad result because we live in a universe full of free will. But what does it teach me about God, being a dad over these last 20 years? I think I mentioned this the last time, but I think I might have a tiny sense of how frustrated God must feel when I'm down here thinking I've got my act together and I know what I'm doing, and he's looking and thinking, you really don't know what you're doing, Shawn. And I picked on one of our daughters, we won't name her, saying, I can back the car out of the garage, Dad, I can do it. And not 3 minutes later, I hear bang as she hits the side of the garage door and rips the mirror off the car.
Off my car.
Off your car. Yeah. And so the mirror is off, and that was a $500 repair because she managed to rip it right out of the body of the car.
Somehow.
$500 repair. And so I'm thinking, how much damage have I caused in God's universe? Here he is. He's trying to restore the human race. He's trying to build his kingdom and shed his light in this world through his people. We are supposed to be Christ-like. We are supposed to demonstrate Christ to the world so that they choose his kingdom, the kingdom that's coming. And so how frustrated is God when I go out there and really botch it, and it's because I'm really sure I know what I'm doing? And I can think of examples where I tried to share my faith, particularly as a new Christian, where I thought this is going really well, and I managed to actually hurt and offend the people, mostly because of my Dutch bluntness. No, Dutch bluntness is a thing. That's my people.
Yeah,
we're blunt. We think
know.
the most noble characteristic is to say what you're thinking, and that's a cultural thing. And so, how frustrated is God when he? And then how frustrated is he when I read his rules and think I know better? Right?
Yeah.
Oh, Dad, I know your rule is don't stay up late and watch horror movies after midnight. I know that's your rule. And then they go ahead and do it, and then they can't sleep for 2 nights because they snuck out of bed and watched the monster movie. Or the Alien movie. That was the deal in our house. And we don't promote any of this stuff, but it's out there in the world, and our daughter decided she was fascinated by aliens and then couldn't sleep for 3 nights because what if an alien is looking through my window? Honey, that's not the universe we live in. Relax, it's just a story. That's why Daddy told you don't sneak out and watch that junk.
Well, that was the same child that when she was not even 4, like 4 at the oldest, she said to me, Mom, are there aliens in the universe? And I said, no, honey, no. And she said, how do you know? Have you been through the whole universe? I'm like,
I might disagree with you.
I'm in trouble with her.
No, I'd probably disagree with you on the We've done that subject here.
Yes, we
I
have.
think there is a possibility biblically, another subject, another day, where God has other worlds out there.
I agree.
Infinite
I
universe,
just didn't want to
infinite-
go
I know,
there with
I
a
know.
not quite 4-year-old.
Yeah. And I think we talked about the fact that how does God feel when he has to let me reap the consequences of my actions, because I want to stop my kids from getting hurt by their bad decisions. But sometimes the consequence now, when they're 14, let's say, is so much easier to work through than when you're 27. You know, you're 27 and you're pregnant, or you're 20 and unwed, or you're 27 and you've got a drug habit. That's going to be really hard to work through. So minor mistakes now, letting them reap the consequences so they learn that God's boundaries mean something. And then I wonder, does God go through that agony? Is he going to let me this time, when I haven't listened yet again, is he going to let me reap the consequences of this action so that I understand that he has his, well, let's say the 10 Commandment moral law. It's there for a reason. Thou shalt not covet is there for a reason. It's because it's in our best interest not to live that way. So...
Yeah, and Shawn, I just recently finished studying Jeremiah during my personal devotional time. And
I know it's one of your favorites.
It's one of my favorites. So that book, of course, is full of God's warnings through the prophet Jeremiah to the people of Israel to change their ways, or all of this destruction would happen. But throughout that book, he offers them hope, and he offers them an alternate to that. And so I think sometimes we as parents, we have rules, we tell our kids no to things, and our kids don't see what's behind it, that we love them and we want something better for them. We want a better future for them. Right. All they see is the destructions coming, and they see the negative. They read the negative into it, like we can do with God. Yeah. And how hurtful that must be for God, because we know as parents that it hurts us when our kids just read the negative into our rules, and they can't understand that we're doing it because we love them.
Here's another one that I wonder about, and maybe I've learned, maybe I haven't. But I look at this phenomenon where it's possible that there is this child who is driving you absolutely nuts at the moment, angering you even, pushing all your buttons, angering you, doing something they were told not to do, frankly, ticking you off. And at the same moment, simultaneously, they are the object of your greatest affection and the greatest joy in your entire life. And so this mixed emotion, how are you making me so mad when I love you so much? Does God go through that?
He must feel, well, he doesn't, I don't know. But God feels. He feels the hurt and he feels the pain.
Yeah, he does.
And I think what we experience as parents probably is absolutely nothing compared to what he feels toward all of us combined as the human race, and the pain and all those deep emotions he feels.
Here's another one I've learned. Here's another one. What does it mean to have someone who can't possibly pay for what they did wrong? Right? And they can't repay you for what you do for them. This happened to me. I mean, I was 16. I totaled my father's car, and there's no way I can pay him back for that. It was the first new car he had in a while, and I totaled it, showing off for a bunch of girls. And I know that's hard to picture.
Really hard.
But so I totaled the thing, and I can't pay that back. And so I remember at that age when I became a Christian, I'm thinking, man, that's like me and God. I can't pay back. You know, the damage I've done in this universe, I can't pay that back. Now, as a father, I look at that and I get it. Like, how can you love someone who did wrong, can't pay you back, and you're still willing to go to bat for that kid? Because it's your kid.
Because you love them.
You love them. And so that, I look at it, if God describes himself as my father, and he's saying, look, please come back. The number of times he pleads with Israel, please turn from your wicked ways and live. Would you live,
to spare
please?
them all the awfulness that was coming.
And so how can you be angry and love at the same time? There's a question that theologians wrestle with. How can you be angry? Because the Bible talks about God's anger and wrath, and his is different than ours in that it's perfectly righteous. But you can't evade the fact that it's there. So how can you love and be angry at the same time? Not hard. Not hard, because angry love or loving anger is seeking the best for your child, and I think it's more of a sense of frustration that they're not going to end where you hope they would end, that they're not getting out of life what you hope they would get out of life, that they're going to have to reap a consequence you never wanted them to have to reap. So how do you be angry and love at the same time? Speaking of which, anger and love, let's talk about disciplining children a little bit, because I know that's part of being a Christian parent. And
it is.
Honestly, I think there's a tendency away from disciplining children at all, and I think we've been reaping that. So what was the biggest difference between you and me? Because we mostly agree on things like discipline, but there are some distinct differences. Did we defer to wait till your father gets home? Did you do that?
Did you do that?
Yeah. Did you do, hey, just you wait till your father gets home?
No, not really. But I would tend to want to deal with it in the moment. And but what I would do rarely, it was for the big stuff.
Because this is how I ended up being the bad guy in our house.
You think you're the
Wait
bad
till
guy.
your father gets home.
I
He's going to
didn't
rip
do
you
that.
in half.
No, I didn't do that. But what I would do is I would deal with it, and then I would say, and we are going to talk to your father about what happened. We're going to, not your father, I'd always say daddy, and daddy is going to find out what happened. I'm going to tell daddy. And
Did that scare them?
Oh, sometimes they would just, no. You do whatever you want, Mom. Just don't tell daddy.
Is it because
Please
no,
don't
come
tell
on now.
daddy.
Is that because they were scared or because they didn't want to disappoint me?
Second.
Oh, come on.
No, it was the
Really?
second. They would be like, no, he's going to think I blah, 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 or he's going to think I whatever. Because I think in most families, one parent is a little easier than the other parent, right? And it's not always the dad that's tougher. Oftentimes it's the mom. But our family, you're tougher. I'm the more soft
You're
one.
a pushover.
Not completely.
No, you're a complete pushover. They just have to cry a little and you melt.
Well, I did
But
punish
Mommy,
them
I
plenty.
really did need this toy. I know I stole it, but would you buy it for me?
No, but
See, you're tempted
no,
now. You're tempted now.
No, but
Yeah.
it's easy. It's easy to be a pushover parent, and that is my tendency.
That's abdicating duty, right?
But you're not being a good parent, and you're not being faithful to what your child needs to give in to them all the time. And so I definitely disciplined our kids, and I said no to our kids many times when I didn't want to, when I would have much rather just said, oh yeah, go do X, Y, Z. I don't really care. But part of being a parent is doing the tough stuff, even if it's tough for you.
Yeah. Tough for you, man. I used to vacillate because I would discipline the kids and then be worried I was way too tough on them. And then I'd decide not to be so tough next time. And then I'd think, man, I did not
was too
discipline
easy
those
on
kids
them. Yeah.
enough. And for me, trying to find the middle road, and yeah, I was absolutely more of a Nazi than you. There's no question. It's funny now, the kids, did you just admit to it? Yeah, I did. I was tough. I'm from the old school.
But Shawn, you're a good dad. You were then and you are now.
I don't know.
You are.
I don't know.
Yes, you are.
All right. Well, I vacillated. Like, okay, I came down way too hard. And once or twice I've had to go back and apologize. Daddy should have gathered himself and collected his thoughts before he spoke to you. And I yelled at you, and we could have done that without yelling.
Yeah. I've had to apologize for that too. I mean, we're human. We all parents, we have our own flaws that creep in when we're parenting our kids. It just happens.
Yeah, my heart goes out to Mary. I don't know if I think about this all the time. What would it be like to raise the perfect child?
Yeah.
Is Jesus ever wrong?
Well, if he
No,
never
he's
did
not.
anything wrong,
Yeah,
then
I know.
it would be
so,
easy.
Yeah. So you look at the story of Jesus staying behind in the temple, and they go and discipline Jesus. What were you doing, scaring us like that? And he's perfectly right.
He is.
See, we don't
True.
have to face that.
That's true.
That's a thankful thing. I see the clock running out on me. We're going to have to take a little break. We're talking about what we learn from God and about God when he makes us parents and puts us in little people's lives sort of as an authority figure. So we're going to take a little break, and we're going to come back to the agony and the ecstasy right after this.
Disclosure is just one of the programs brought to you by the Voice of Prophecy, like the audio adventure program Discovery Mountain. Discovery Mountain is a weekly Bible-based program for kids of all ages and backgrounds. Your family will enjoy faith-building stories with Jake Donovan, Mr. Simon, and others in this small mountain town. Each summer, campers visit Discovery Mountain, where they sing songs, learn about God, and reenact a Bible story with the help of drama teachers Miss Wendy and Miss Tamra. With 24 full episodes every year and programming every week, your family will have something uplifting to listen to every week. Listen to episodes on demand and watch video features from Director Doug at discoverymountain.com or on your favorite podcast platform. That's discoverymountain.com.
With a wave of the producer's hand, we are back on the air. I love that they at least warn us that the mics are live. Not that I'm different.
Absolutely.
Not that I'm different when the mics are dead. Hey, we were talking about a friend of ours, Tracy. A big shout out to Tracy in Oregon. We're talking about parenting, and you're one of the great ones out there. You and your husband, Shawn. Every Shawn is a great Shawn.
And great daughters.
Yeah. So a big shout out to you, and a big wave through the microphone. You just ran into them at the big Pathfinder Camporee a little while ago.
Yeah, it was so busy. Everyone was so busy, but got to say hi to them a couple of times, which is nice.
We were talking about discipline, and obviously we're thinking of over the last 20 years because we're just coming up on empty nest, and some of you out there are ahead of us. Your kids have gone a long time ago, and you've got grandparent thing going on, but maybe some others are behind us a little bit, and your kids are younger. And I guess I'm hoping that you'll use these years well and pay attention to the things that God has to offer. I'm not sure I always did. And it's quite an education you get. I think God can teach you a lot about yourself in the act of parenting. We were talking about discipline. And I think one of the decisions we made early, because we took advice from a Christian, and I think it was good advice. In hindsight, it was good advice, so take this or leave it. But we made a decision right out of the bat that our children would not be the center of our home, which surprises some people. No, your children are everything. No. We decided our children would not be the center of our home, but that our marriage would be the center of our home, and that our children would understand that that is the foundational thing. Long after you kids grow up and leave, mom and dad are still going to be here, and our marriage comes first and you come next. And that sounds like, how can you do that? A child should know they come first. No, I don't think it's a bad lesson to learn that you're not first. And that, the same way that I am very important to God. He loved me enough to send his only begotten son, but his glory and his kingdom come first. And I can choose to be there and participate in it or not, but God comes first. It's for the health of the whole universe. It's not some ego thing on God's part. It's for the health of his whole universe that he comes first. And I think it's for the health of a family that mom and dad come first, that the marriage comes first, that the home comes first. And I actually think there's more security for a kid than, I don't know, I hate to do stereotypes, but it drives me nuts when I run across a kid and it's obvious the kid runs the house.
Yeah. And maybe that part of that's our generation. I don't know. But I agree, Shawn. We made a very conscientious effort to, of course, our kids knew they were loved and they were, they could
Not
maybe
every
answer
day.
differently.
No.
I don't know.
No,
but,
I love my kids. I love them.
They knew that. And when they're young, I think that decision that the marriage is kind of like the center of the family. What that meant was you and I could spend time together. We could go out for an evening, which rarely happened, but once in a while.
It still doesn't happen.
And once in a while, I would go on a work trip with you, and the kids would stay with grandparents. So we modeled for the kids that it was okay for us to do that for each other and that they would be fine without us for a short period of time. So I think that was good in the beginning. It also showed them that their whims didn't change how the structure of the family.
And that's not bad for a kid.
It's not.
I'm not convinced that's bad
stability.
for a kid. I know some people are scared to do that. If I don't keep my kid happy and give them what they're asking for, they're not going to love. No, it's the opposite, actually.
Yeah.
I think kids respect the fact that there is some structure, and I know kids are going to push that structure. They're going to push the boundaries.
That's how they do it.
But I think it's more disappointing to find out there are no barriers than that there are. Where's the security in a home that has no limit, no barrier?
Yeah. So they that was good when they were young. Now, our oldest daughter Natalie is at college, and I'm seeing in a different way the benefit of that to her because she and I are very close, as you know. I'm close with both girls. But when Natalie goes away to college, she doesn't worry about mom being lonely or any of that. She knows you and I have each other, and we are the most important relationship to each other. And so it allows her to go off and do her own thing in complete security with no guilt, where I think some kids, sometimes they become so attached to one or the other of the parents, they almost feel guilty leaving them. And I wouldn't want to hinder our children from pursuing what God places on their hearts. They need to be free to go, and they are.
Do you have discipline regrets?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we already talked about kind of losing your cool once in a while. Definitely did that. But, I think really, and I've heard a lot of older parents say this, I wish I just would not have worried about minor details in certain areas so much and just relaxed a little more.
See, sometimes I think I didn't pay enough attention to minor details. And I know, and I'm the stricter one. But sometimes I think, man, they're about ready to launch in the world if I'd only paid more attention in this area. Because I guess that's the other thing. It hurts to see that your kids have flaws. You don't want your kids to have flaws, but I know I've got flaws, and God watches me saying, what a shame he's got flaws. Our kids' flaws aren't terrible. Every kid's got some flaws. And I don't know, maybe I didn't. Here's what I regret, though. I regret sometimes not analyzing a situation more carefully before I jump on it, right? So I see one kid push another in the backyard. They're supposed to be out raking leaves, and I see one push another, and I come down on the pusher and not the pushee because I didn't take the time to figure out what ramped up that situation. And it actually might turn out that the one who was not pushing was really being cruel. And so they both needed it. I don't know. I jumped too quick. Sometimes I didn't cool down enough because I don't always have a hot temper, but you've seen it. It gets hot on occasion. I will blow a gasket because I've had enough. That is enough. You're driving me nuts.
Yeah.
And I wasn't fast enough. The worst part is we got one child in particular. It's like even the slightest rebuke, and she wells up with tears because she can't believe she disappointed you. And then I feel like a bonehead. It's like, are you kidding? I made her cry. And to this day, remember?
I know, you can still make her
I can
cry
still do it.
if
All
you
I have to
push
do
it.
is say to her, what did you do? And that's all it used to take when she was little. What did you do? And she'd start crying. On one occasion I did it because she hadn't even done anything. I just wanted to see if she'd still cry when there was nothing involved. And I repent, that was wrong. I'll pay for counseling. I get it. But what did you do? And she started, And now she's nearly 20 years old, and if I go, what did you do? She says, stop it. I don't like that.
Right, I know. She's very sensitive.
Yeah, the other one, what did you do? You'll never find out.
Yeah, right. Make her cry?
You'll never
Rarely.
you'll never find the body.
Yeah, pretty much.
I was more that way, though. You would not get me to cry. I am not going to cry. You can discipline me. I am not going to give you that satisfaction. I might go sniffle a little in private, but you are not going to see it.
See, you and one of our children think that through. The other child and me, our personalities are, we just react in the moment. We don't think about it that deeply.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the other regret that I've got is assuming out of the gate that you discipline all children exactly the same way.
Yeah, we kind of learned that early on, though.
Yeah, do you remember when our oldest didn't want to go to bed anymore?
Yeah.
So she didn't want to go to bed. I said, all right, bedtime 7:30.
She was like,
I don't want to go to bed. You can stay up all night then. Okay, great. So she hops up on the couch, plays with her toys. I said, no. The children's toys go away at 7:30 because that's bedtime for all the children things. If you want to stay up all night, that's great, but the toys go away. Well, what do you guys do? Well, we read. So we're reading books. She pulls out one of her picture books. We say, no, the children's books go away at 7:32. So remember, I gave her a great big 700-page on Christian evangelism, a manual.
Yeah.
And I get no pictures, and she's bravely thumbing through it.
Yeah,
and
she's sitting there, a little tiny thing with this big book.
Yeah.
Turning the
being
pages.
brave, and she's bored to tears. And finally, we yawn at 7:45. Let's go up to bed. We're tired. Turn off all the lights in the house. 5 minutes later, I hear her in the bathroom. She comes to our bedroom door.
Yeah.
Guys, are you awake? Are you awake in there? And we're like, oh, we can't laugh now or this is over. We lose.
Yeah.
Well, pretend you're asleep. And we hear her getting ready for bed sobbing. You're going to cry now,
I
aren't
know.
you? She's sobbing. Nobody read me a story.
Nobody
and nobody
brushed
prayed.
my teeth.
Yeah, nobody prayed with me. And we found her on the floor with her one-piece pajama halfway on in the morning. She fell asleep on the floor.
Not in the morning. I went over. Like, as soon as she fell
you
asleep,
big
I went
softy.
over and
You big
put her in her
softy.
bed
Okay,
and
but-
tucked her in.
So I think, well, what marvel. We are such wonderful parents. Look how that worked. Because the next night, 7:30 bedtime. Okay,
Boom.
yeah,
She's
I'm
in
ready.
bed. Yeah.
Tried it with the next one. At 7:30, you can stay up all night if you want. Tried exactly the same thing. That kid partied all night.
Oh, yeah, she
She
didn't
just
care.
partied all night, bouncing off the walls, driving me nuts. Like it didn't care. So no human being is the same. And I'm thinking, I guess
Right.
that's it with God. Where you see a story where he comes down on somebody in a certain way in the Bible, but not somebody else. Could it be because of the lesson that needed to be learned by that personality type? Be very careful before you apply blanket solutions to everybody every time. No child is alike, and no child of God is alike.
True.
And so, I see situations where Daniel, I'm not eating any of that food, period. And he's honoring God by doing that.
Right.
Paul says, what does it matter? Food offered to idols is nothing. An idol is they're both honoring God from a different perspective, and God is big enough to accommodate that. I mean, there are things that are clear cut in the Bible, thou shalt not steal and stuff, but it's possible that God's children can be different and relate to him differently based on who they are. And the disciples were all different from each other. And so maybe you see God dealing with somebody and you think, what a severe punishment that seems to be. But maybe it wasn't for that person. And so I think I've learned to step back, and before you judge why God did something, maybe he knows his children.
Yeah.
Maybe he knows them.
Of course, he knows us better than we know ourselves.
Are there times that you're glad you did the hard thing early?
Oh, yeah. And we were pretty conscientious. I mean, we were very conscientious when our girls were young of certain behaviors we wanted to kind of nip in the bud early.
Yeah.
One example was lying. I had zero tolerance for lying, but every little kid lies. That's just part of what they do.
The Bible says we're born sinful, and you really don't have to teach a kid how to bite their sister or lie.
No. Those things just happen. And so
I see Ruben laughing, right? Did you have to train your kids to do that stuff?
Over and over again.
You had to train them to hate each other and tell you a lie?
Yeah.
Well, the opposite anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. It just comes, it's there.
Yeah. So when those things naturally showed up, because they do, we were very adamant that is not acceptable. And we, came down pretty hard on them.
Families don't lie to each other. Nobody lies, but...
Right. And consequences were paid early on and quickly. And we really cleared that up pretty quickly. It wasn't like it was an issue that went on for years. It went on a couple times. Another thing that I know we were very strict about was our kids being respectful. We did not tolerate any disrespect to us or to other adults or even other children. And so because those things were important to us and we were very strict about them early, they weren't issues as the kids got older. And I think those different trigger points are different for every parent, but I was glad that we were very proactive in the beginning and they became non-issues.
Yeah, I agree. Sometimes we crack down early hard on an issue, but it was funny. They learned it at 2 years of age and you never had to deal with it again.
Yeah, and it just disappeared
never had
essentially.
to deal with it again. I don't know. Do you find it frustrating when you worked very hard to make sure that our children were respectful and then they get into kindergarten and mix with kids who are not?
Yeah.
And it's like, am I going to have to pay the price for parents who didn't teach respect?
Well, by kindergarten, hopefully you feel like you've laid a good foundation with your kid. I know a lot of families choose to homeschool their children a few years longer than kindergarten for that very reason, because you can continue to instill the proper values in your children before they are mixing.
So you entrench the good things before you release them into the wild.
Absolutely,
But you got to release them into the wild at some
eventually.
point. That's a parent's goal, is to release that kid into the wild ready for life. And I think that's why discipline is so important. And so the music's playing. I want to come back and ask one more discipline question. It's the tough one. In this day and age, you're shaking your head, but I'm going to ask it. I'm going to ask it. As soon as we come back from this break, we're talking about parenting, the agony, and the ecstasy, part 2. We'll be right back after this.
Are you searching for answers to life's toughest questions? Like, where is God when we suffer? Can I find real happiness? Does my life really matter to God? Or is there any hope for our chaotic world? The Discover Bible Guides will help you find the answers that you're looking for. Visit us at BibleStudies.com or give us a call at 888-456-7933 for your free Discover Bible Guides. Study online on our secure website or have the free guides mailed right to your home. There is never a cost or obligation. The Discover Bible Guides are our free gift to you. Find answers in guides like A Second Chance at Life. You'll find answers to the things that matter the most to you. Visit BibleStudies.com and begin your journey today to discover answers to life's deepest questions.
Here we are in the final segment, and I'm being disciplined by the producer to stay within my time limits. Yeah, he's shaking his finger at me. Producer Ruben shaking his finger at me. We were talking about discipline, the things that parents learn about God by being put into this arena where you're raising little people, and that you represent God to those little people in their earliest years, and of course we represent what we learn by watching those little people is maybe how God sees us, at least some glimpse. We can't really put ourselves in God's shoes, but we were talking about, are you glad you did the hard thing early in discipline? And here's the question I wanted to explore a little bit. There's this school of thought. It's relatively modern, since the 1960s, after Benjamin Spock put out his book on parenting. By the way, it's interesting. In later life, he apparently, I don't know if it's urban legend or not, but he apparently apologized for some of the advice he put in that book. But this is a school of thought that you can't discipline a child who's 2 years old or younger. They just will never understand. And I've always kind of fought that. I thought, okay, they can't rationalize everything, but there does need to be a really early start on consequences. And I guess we won't get into the spanking debacle and debate because you don't want to. I do. But I won't do it. But
Okay.
But can you discipline a 2-year-old? I argue, yes, you can.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely. I think you're missing, if you never discipline a 2-year-old, you are missing the opportunity to help that child understand the boundaries in the home, understand what's right and wrong. Because our kids, I remember when they were 2, they understood. I mean, they can't think deeply, but they knew if I do this, this happens. And they can process that information.
Yes, they can.
Absolutely.
Now, it's not nice to scratch your sister. You can go through that one. It's not nice to scratch your sister, but they don't really understand why. But they understand that if I scratch my sister, something bad happens. It might not be the logical conclusion that you would come to when you're 40.
Right.
But at least
right.
you understand that, bad things can happen if I do what is considered wrong. And I don't think that's an unimportant lesson to learn. I like to think that I can tell which kids were disciplined early and which ones were sort of allowed to be free range. Well, free range means something different nowadays, and I do believe in free range parenting. But but the ones who are sort of, we won't do anything until they're old enough to reason it through, and it's almost embarrassing to
It's
them
almost
now.
too late.
Now that's not nice. Listen to mommy. Think this through. You're not thinking it through it too, but you do understand when you lost your favorite toy or had to go stand in the corner or got a swat on the bum. I'm old school. And again, there's a huge difference. Let me just say this. Let me throw this out there. Here's the disclaimer. Huge difference between abuse, beating, and a little swat on the butt that's indignant.
Of course.
Right?
There's
We're
a
not trying to
huge
hөр our
difference.
children, but we're trying
No.
to, So you can disagree with me, but write your complaint letters to Jean Boonstra, Box 999, Loveland, Colorado.
And when they're little, not talking about harsh discipline, you can do. I remember one time, oldest child, Natalie, she was misbehaving at the dinner table, and all you had to do, Shawn, because she's a very sociable child, we know this now, all we had to do was push her high chair away from us, so she was a little bit further away from us, and she felt like she was disconnected, and that was
right.
enough of a punishment.
Do you remember the one time I turned her chair around so she
Yeah,
couldn't
she
see us
couldn't
because
see
she
us.
was flinging her food or something, and she knew what she wasn't supposed to.
Yeah.
And so I turned her chair around, and she was dying inside,
Yeah.
I want to be part of the event.
Yeah. So not harsh things.
No,
little
but
things.
just learning.
They can understand that.
I can't just do what I want in this world. And you have this limited opportunity to teach a human being that. Mm-hmm. And if they get out into the world and no one taught them that, they're going to find out at their first job that you can't just do what you want. And I've had to let some people go over the years that never learned it at home and were unfit for the workplace. Yeah. And it's
Sadly.
sad. Yeah. It's a lot of fun when you teach your child something and they catch on. The last time we did this topic, we were talking about the proudest moments, Natalie learning to roll over, Naomi learning to read, those things. Mm-hmm. Fun to watch your own personality traits come out. Natalie's musical, and I watch that and think, that's me. Those are my
she
genes.
Got all the music from you.
I love music, and that's me. That's right. And so we really celebrate the positive ones, but the opposite's true too. Do you remember the first time you saw your own negative traits? Or maybe your own personal struggles appear in your child?
Oh, yes. Oh, and that is so humbling. Let's see. I remember again, we've talked poor Natalie. I hope if she hears this program, she forgives us.
We
But
love you, Natalie.
we've
This is
talked
just a way of disciplining you in front of the whole world.
There we go, Shawn. Oh dear. I've already mentioned how stubborn she is, but that was humbling because I know she gets that a little bit from both of us, but her type of stubbornness is definitely me. I mean, she's me. But I remember when she was little and Naomi was a baby, and one time Naomi was trying to touch some of her stuff, and Natalie ripped whatever the thing was out of Naomi's hands and said, "Don't touch that. That's my important papers." And I heard my own voice coming through her, because I would tell her all the time, "Don't touch that. That's Mommy's important papers."
Do you remember my most humiliating moment?
I don't know.
Driving down the freeway. I'm driving down the freeway in Toronto, the 401, right? And a trucker cut me off. I had to swerve to avoid having the front end of my car hit by the tail end of this truck. And I swerve into the next lane. My knuckles are white. A bead of sweat appears on my forehead. My heart is racing. Man, that was a close call. And then I swerve back. And Natalie wasn't quite too. And she's sitting in her car seat in the back, and she suddenly yells out a very unkind name. It wasn't a swear word.
Not a swear word.
No,
I remember this.
it wasn't. It wasn't a swear word or anything like that, but she basically shakes her fist at the trucker and calls him a name. And I'm thinking, and I remember you shooting me a dirty look. Where would she learn that? I don't know.
That's where she learned it. Was
and
from
I guess
you.
I mutter in traffic and say unkind things about the other drivers. And I'm thinking, my goodness, little ears do pick everything
they do.
up.
They do.
And she thinks that's how you react to the world. What a humbling moment that is, because it might be how Dad reacts to the world, and I bet you that's been passed on from generation to generation in my family. But the other one, when I see one of my kids get quiet and smoldering angry about something, that's me. They got that from me, because in a relationship, you have skunks and turtles. I remember a pastor telling us that when we're getting married. Skunks spray each other when they're mad, and turtles retreat into their shell. And
You're a turtle.
I'm more turtle than you are, I think. And you are more skunk than I am, I think, because you want to finish this and you want to come after it again.
I want it done.
Yeah. And so I see one, and I'm thinking, I haven't always dealt the best that way. I tend to disappear into my world and maybe overthink the situation and let it get to me more than it should, and imagine things that aren't true. And I watch one of my kids thinking, no, don't do it. Don't deal with the world like your dad deals with the world. And I watch that, and it actually hurts some. I'm watching, don't do it like your dad did. I could spare you this, and I know you got that from me. And I got another child who, I don't know how important getting up on time and going to class is, but it wasn't all that important to her father. And I watched that, and I'm thinking, no, don't do what I did. I slacked off, and I'm sorry to this day that I did. But you can't seem to communicate that. And I guess that's one of the frustrating things, is when I see something I know I'm the inspiration for, and I'm an unintentional inspiration for it. And it's the most humiliating moment. Humbling is a better word.
Yeah, it's
because
very
you realize
humbling.
I really do have a fallen nature. There are things about me that I'm blind to until I see them mirrored in a little person who picked it up from me.
I know. It's very humbling.
What interactions with your kids have made you understand your own parents a little bit better, finally?
Wow. Yeah, parenting really gives you a lot of understanding for your own parents, doesn't it? And I think probably the teen years give you the most sympathy for your own parents. Our kids they've been so good. They were such good teenagers.
They
by
really were good
comparison.
kids.
Compared to me,
Oh,
I was such... wow. I put my mom through a lot as a teenager.
Do tell
No,
how
I'm
you
not
tormented
gonna
your mother.
tell. I'm
Just
not
how
gonna
bad of
tell.
a teenager were you, Jean?
I was a bad teenager. I was, way worse than our daughters are. Our daughters are so good by
I can't imagine you
comparison.
being a mouthy teenager, though.
You can too. That's why you're looking at me the way you are. But, the funny thing is, and my friend who has been my friend since 4th grade, Holly, she and I were talking about this in December. When I was a teenager, I thought my mother was so unreasonable because she was so strict with me. The reality is, I am way more strict with my daughters than my mom ever was. I mean,
You
Holly
became your mother.
No, I became more than my mother. And Holly doesn't have her own children, so she kind of could can watch this all and she can comment on it from an outsider's perspective, and she thinks it's funny because there are so many things that I don't let my kids do. And Holly said to me, if your mom did that to you, you would have turned to me and said, my mother can't stand me. And so I have a lot more sympathy for both of my parents, having gone through this journey myself.
One of the things I get now is why I used to wonder, why is Dad getting so frustrated and mad with me right now? It's like, how unreasonable is this? He doesn't get it. Oh, I get it now. My dad's frustration when he was giving us opportunities to learn to work, because that's important. I think that's important across men and women, but particularly to men. Mm-hmm. Teaching your children to work and be self-sufficient is one of the goals. I want to get to that goal. Yeah. So my father would do that. He'd head out to work on a weekend in the morning and say, okay, I want you to, he'd give us about 2 hours of chores: cut firewood, weed the garden, mow the lawn, wash the car. 2 hours. Mm-hmm. So what would we do? Because nobody's around. We would lay around, we'd go downstairs, watch TV. And then when we realized he's coming home in half an hour, we'd go out
Run around and do all your work.
Yeah, and make it look like we'd been working. And of course, then he's mad. And why does that make you so mad? He's not mad because we didn't do what we were told and it's a threat to his ego. Of course, that's what you think when you're a teenager.
Sure.
It's not it at all. He's frustrated because he knows we're going to need that skill when we get out into the real world. Yeah. So I did it the whole long way along. My motto: work first, play later. Right? It is so much better to get your work done and then go out and enjoy yourself and play, because you don't have your work hanging over your head. Uh-huh. And then and then they don't get it, and they goof off all day, and the work's not done. And so now at 5 p.m. they still have to do the chores they could have taken care of at 7 a.m.
I know.
And I'm getting frustrated, and suddenly I think, wait a minute, where have I seen a frustrated middle-aged male before? Oh, man, Dad getting mad at me. Mm-hmm. That's one. The other one, I get now why Dad forgave me for destroying his car. I don't know, but until you have kids, you think, man, someone destroyed my car. I don't know. But why was his first concern that I was okay, and his second concern his car?
Because he loves you.
Yeah, and I get it now. And I've tried to learn from that. I'm not sure I have, because I still wig out. There's the truth, folks. Christian pastor fathers wig out on their children. We don't pretend to be perfect around our house, so I wig out. But then I try to remember, you know what? Your dad took you aside and quietly talked to you and forgave you for destroying the one new car that he had.
He knew you didn't do it maliciously.
Well, yeah, but I did it foolishly.
Yeah, but foolish and malicious are different.
I did it by being foolish, yeah. Mm-hmm. And so I try to learn that. Okay, favorite Bible passages about being a parent. I last time I asked that question, I geeked out, and I kind of went to Proverbs 22.
Right.
But here's one for me.
Okay.
Here's one for me. Exodus chapter 12. The plagues are falling on everybody, and the 10th plague falls on the firstborn of every household, right? Unless you're covered by the blood. When you read the second commandment against graven images, it says that the sins of the parents are passed on to the next generation. And so now I realize that my choices have consequences not for me only, but for God's universe and for my children. Mm-hmm. And so choosing to be a godly man matters not just for me, but because what I'm modeling is going to be picked up by my kids. Mm-hmm. And so choosing not to sin against God is not just for my benefit, and it is for my benefit, but it's for their benefit too. It's like I owe it to them to show God's best life. And so I look at that. I guess that's not so much a Bible promise, but I take that to heart. The kids pay the consequences for God doesn't hold the kids responsible for your sins, but they do pay the consequence, and I've taken that to heart. My life matters, and it's influenced others. There's the music. We're out of time, my goodness. But
we are.
Parenting, the agony and the ecstasy. It's worth it.
Yes.
If you're planning a family, go through it with your eyes wide open. There will be highs. There will be incredible lows on some occasions. There'll be some pain. There'll be a lot of laughter. But most of all, keep your eyes wide open, because God's trying to teach you something about himself. Until next time, it's Shawn and Jean at Disclosure.